First off, Lance, let's go back to high school. You competed all year round, football, basketball, golf. Not only did you compete, but you're successful, state championships in all three. Maybe just talk about what drove you then to compete in pretty much anything you could sign up for.
Yeah, well, I guess back in high school, I was around a tremendous group of guys. I mean, everybody was extremely competitive, like not only just on kind of the high school level with other teams, but also in each other. I remember many times our basketball practices get broken up by fights, and it was no big deal. It was just part of athletics. We were best friends again right after that, and it was a great experience kind of coming up to here, being around those guys, them being so competitive, and we always were supportive and driving each other. And I think a big part of athletics in general is kind of your drive to succeed, not only for yourself, but for the guys that you're participating with. You don't want to let them down any more than you want to let yourself down.
So you're recruited to play football. Out of high school, was that your top choice, or was it your top offer?
In high school, I always thought I was going to go to college to play basketball. That was kind of my dream, and I had always pursued that more so than over football. But when Coach Tesh came down, he actually drove through a blizzard to get to our house. All the roads were shut down, and he piled through with his four-wheel drive, and that was kind of meant a lot to me. And he also told me that if I ever got the itch to play basketball up here, he'd be more than willing to give me a chance to try it and see how I like playing two sports, and if it was too much with school. And he was a great guy. He recruited me well. He seems like the guy that does everything right, and that's kind of what I'd like to become one day. And I think Coach Tesh set a good example of that.
So you get to campus as a freshman redshirt football player. Probably pretty certain you're going to sit out a year. So now winter rolls around and it's the basketball season. From what I've heard, you kind of go to a couple games and you got the itch again. So kind of walk us through that, your first year playing football, and then as the basketball season kind of started to come around.
Yeah, well, when I came up here, I got redshirted right away. Most of us know we're going to get redshirted. And I went through that season, and it went very well. I ended up breaking my thumb at the end of the year, and that kind of held me back because I was already kind of thinking about doing basketball, but breaking my thumb obviously didn't allow me to do that. And going to the games and being in the excitement again, and played intramural basketball, and I just decided it wasn't quite something I could let go yet. And I talked to Coach Bowen, and he was very enthusiastic about me coming to try out for the team. And I talked to Coach Tesh, and he stuck right to his word and allowed me to attempt to participate in both sports.
So now you're entering your fourth season of football, third season of basketball. You've done it for a couple of years. Just talk about what it means to be a two-sport athlete, and you get off the football field and you step onto the court almost immediately. So or even some crossover. So just kind of talk about what it takes and what it means for you to be that two-sport athlete.
It means a lot for me personally. I know a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do so, and I feel very fortunate that not only am I capable of doing it, but I'm around the people that support me. Both teams, neither one have sour taste in their mouths about me not being able to fully commit in the preseasons of basketball and some of the off-season workout in football. And if it weren't for the guys on either team, I wouldn't have the confidence I do to play either sport. It drives me to play both sports. I mean, just to be successful as a person and to be able to be a successful student. And I really like to pride myself in being able to do all three of those things, and time management skills it's teaching me, I hope will benefit me a lot in grad school and future endeavors in my life. And I think athletics in college is a remarkable experience for anyone who ever gets a chance to do it, and I'm very fortunate that I get to do it in two sports.
Kind of touched on it with the you're a student athlete, and that student comes first for a reason. You've been able to not only compete on the field but in the classroom at an extremely high level. What is it? What drives you in the classroom? And is it road trips, extra studying? What is it that makes you a good student as well?
I think I grew up around a lot of successful people. My uncle specifically was an orthodontist who kind of is where I got my urge to want to become that one day. And he was a very, very successful student. I think he still scored the top on the dental admissions test out of anybody that's ever taken it, and his drive as a student and has always been there to push me academically more so than athletically, and he's a very successful man. Everybody respects him, and he's probably one of the biggest, I guess, one of the biggest supporters of me and kind of my drive to be a great student. And I don't want to just go through college being known as an athlete. I want to be known as someone who succeeded in the classroom and went on to become something greater than just a college or football or basketball player.
You kind of touched on it. You're pursuing a career as being an orthodontist. I guess like you said, your uncle did it, but what draws you to that profession, and then what do you have for extra schooling after your undergrad's complete?
I actually had the opportunity to work in an orthodontist clinic my freshman and sophomore year, and get to see kind of the lifestyle that he lives, the continuing. You have all patients from ages 8 years old to, I think there was one lady when I was there who was like 95, and she was just getting braces on because she wanted her teeth to look good. And just being able to continuously move from one patient to another, and they kind of come off of the way your attitude is. So if you've got a positive attitude, a lot of the kids are excited to be there, and they like making jokes and telling you about their high school sports, and it's not a real stressful life. It's hard work, but it's something that I always look forward to going into every day and meeting new people, and it's just it's definitely worth it to me, being able to see kind of someone coming in who is just getting braces and a little nervous, and then seeing them walk out at the end of their term smiling and having a good looking teeth. And that's just kind of something that's always driven me, is to serve people and be able to make them feel better about themselves. And after Bemidji State, I'll be going on to grad school, which is 4 years of dental school, and orthodontic school is anywhere from 2 to 3 years after that, depending on where you go. Every university is a little different.
So you kind of had an idea of what the profession was like before you entered college, but your biology and chemistry classes, did you have that science background, or were you kind of taken back a little bit at all by your coursework to prepare for this profession?
Oh yeah, a lot of the grad schools are very competitive. It's only 10% of applicants get in, so it's that's kind of been a drive for me academically too. And I don't know where to kind of go from there. It's definitely a difficult field to get into, and a lot of my classes kind of prepare you for the first year and a half of dental school, but then after that it becomes a lot more hands-on, a lot of things you don't learn or haven't ever learned before, more in-depth anatomy of the teeth and gums and kind of different health things that you have to inquire when you're dealing with certain patients.
Did you ever have braces?
I did for 2.5 years. I had it for a little extra time because I wasn't very good with what I was supposed to do.
So now you're going to be the one telling people what they're supposed to do.
Yep, definitely.
With the just overall student athlete, like you said, 2 sports, sport of your athletes. So far, what has kind of been your top experience, maybe with both or one or the other, and then what do you hope to accomplish in your final couple of years?
I think definitely a couple of my greatest personal achievements in either sport is just being able to get that starting position. Football, being quarterback, basketball, getting to start my first year and started last year, and that's not a lot that a lot of people get to do that either, and just kind of that in general, and being around the guys is a feeling like no other. I mean, people who aren't athletes won't understand it, but freshmen who come in on the football team, there's 100 of us, and there's not a whole lot of guys that wouldn't do just about anything for anyone else on the team, and there's a lot of different personalities that clash, but in the end they're always there to support each other, especially on the field more than anything. And basketball is the same way. There's definitely this year, I think more so than in the past 10 years, even Coach Bowen said, is everyone's a very, very tightly knit group. I mean, we're hanging out 4 or 5 days a week, and we definitely have incorporated both sports to hanging out together a lot too. I mean, there's guys on the basketball team that are great friends with the football team, and it definitely makes it a lot more exciting being able to have support on both sides that have kind of pushed me through my last 3 years.
All right, here with Coach Jeff Tesch talking about Lance Rongstad. Coach, just kind of briefly walk us through what it was like recruiting Lance. Obviously a successful athlete in multiple sports, and just kind of your story about landing him here at Bemidji State.
Well, I've got a good one on Lance. I started out in Bemidji and drove through a blizzard over to Duluth to northern Wisconsin. The blizzard was so bad, my cell phone wasn't working. I had my cell phones and my internet on my cell phone, so I kept getting down from northern Wisconsin, going down to south of Eau Claire, where Lance is from. I had no idea where I was going direction-wise, driving in a blizzard for I don't know how many hours. And luckily, as I got to his town, my cell phone went on for 3 blocks. And I was able to get reception, get the internet. I got the directions off of there. Went in the back country where Lance's house is from, through drifts and everything, and finally made it to his house. Had a wonderful home visit. Had some wonderful food they provided for me, and on the way home, and then I started to head home to try and find a hotel. Everything was closed, shut down because of the blizzards, and so I ended up all the way back to River Falls. If you do your geographics, from Bemidji to Duluth to Superior, back to River Falls, it was quite a day, and it was obviously worth it, but it was quite the trip to recruit Lance.
He talked about in the first couple visits, you knew his success was also on the basketball court, and was open to letting him pursue those opportunities. How many times? I mean, you've obviously been doing this for a long time. How often does an athlete like that come around where you can really see them competing well on maybe 2 different sports?
Well, that was something as we tried to turn the fortunes of the program around. A lot of programs don't let kids do 2 sports. We felt it was the way to increase other sports on campus. Track, we've got a lot of dual sports athletes, track and football, but we thought it was a way to upgrade the talent on our team. So we know if we're going to recruit Lance that we're going to have to let him play basketball too. Certainly a winter sport, football's a fall, and that we could make that work. So right from the beginning, we let him know that he'd have the opportunity to play both. A little bit tougher in the winter, right as you leave a fall sport going into winter. I think we've had 1 hockey guy. We've had a couple try basketball, but we just felt if we're going to have an opportunity to recruit, that was something we're going to have to do, and we were fine with that.
What separates him from just another, pure athlete that enables him to do these 2 sports, and then also his classroom success as well?
Well, he's got the it factor, and as you recruit, sometimes you can test a guy on his vertical jump, his 40. You can see that he passed the National Clearinghouse, but he's got the it factor. It allows him to do 2 sports, which is hard enough, still do good in academics, and sometimes when guys try 2 sports, they don't have, it's a lot of work, and their academics will suffer. Lance is disciplined enough to study. He's disciplined enough to go from one sport to the other and learn, so that helps. There's lots of learning in 2 sports. And then his body is held together pretty good. He's had a few injuries football-wise, but he's been able to stay on the court health-wise, so obviously he's got some God-given talent there that allows him to play 2 sports. But he's got that it factor, which I think he balances his day, his time, his free time, still has fun, and he seems to make it work.
During the football season, obviously basketball starts up mid-October. You kind of get him first with being the fall sport, but what do you kind of let him do, and what do you like to kind of pull back and have him focus on football? Obviously now being the starting quarterback, is a little more studying to do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in the past, if we've been done early or we had a bye week, or one year I think we were in the bowl game when he was a freshman, those kinds of things, we allowed him to to shoot some balls around after practice, that type of thing. And I think it wore him down a little bit at first. So it's pretty much football right now during the season. Then he's going to have to get caught up. I know when basketball got done, we let him have a week off before he started with spring football, just to rest his body, because he had gone from football to basketball. So I'm not sure if basketball gives him a little time off. He doesn't want much time off. He'd like to be out there right away. But, you know, you got to be careful. You can't run him down too much. So I think as a starting quarterback now, the demands are going to be a little bit more on his time. And I think he's going to have to just wait for basketball really till we're done with him.
How about off the field? Obviously, he's voted captain this year by his teammates. But what kind of person is Lance Rongstad?
He's got the huddle presence, you know, and I think that's why he was voted captain. Kid that really hadn't started yet. He's just got that it factor you talk about. Some guys, they go into the huddle and they have that presence in there that the guys believe, you know, he's going to lead them down to a touchdown or a big drive, and he's done that in all the sports he's been in. He wins. You know, they see he's very talented. They see he's smart. You know, he's not mumbling around in the huddle. He's just got that presence that the guys believe that he's going to do it, and it's hard to explain. Some guys have it and some don't, and he definitely has that in there.
Like I said, you've been around for a long time. How many quarterbacks, or any position for that matter, have gone on to be orthodontists?
He will be my first. Since we've been here, we've had some educators, agents, and insurance, some different things like that, but I think he's going to be our first orthodontist.
Here with Matt Bowen, talking about Lance Rongstad. First off, Matt, did you know about Lance when he first came onto campus? And then what was the process of getting him on the team?
You know, I was aware of Lance when he was in high school, myself being from River Falls, Wisconsin, western Wisconsin, and Lance also being from the area. Had several people send me newspaper articles, certainly was in contact with Eric Medberry, our football offensive coordinator, about Lance, and knew that he was being recruited for football. My recruitment with Lance was really pretty simple. I wrote him one letter saying I loved him as a player, loved him as an athlete, and I know he was considering Bemidji State football, and that they had offered for him to be able to play both football and basketball. And I basically wrote him a letter saying that is indeed true, and we'd love to have you on campus, but I'm not going to hound you and make you try to choose one or the other. Let's just get you to Bemidji State, and then we'll figure it out from there.
So he got on campus, obviously spent the first year. He had an injury, so couldn't compete. But do you do a tryout for a talent like that, or is it just kind of his decision?
Probably another interesting story. It was he redshirted his freshman year in football, and did not play, and quite honestly may have forgot about him a little bit. And I think he struck up some friendships with some kids on our basketball team, and we're in late February, getting ready to play a game, and he's watching warm-ups, and comes up and kind of says hello and says, you know, I think it's time that I start playing basketball. I said, oh, great. You're on the team, and we'll see you next year. And from there, he went into his fall freshman football season and completed that, and then joined our team, and it was a little rough around the edges, but I think in his second or third game came out with a pretty big explosion at Winona State, and the rest has been kind of history.
Obviously, his first commitment in the fall is football, so he misses those preseason practices. He misses a couple weeks this season. What is it like kind of having to wait for him and then having to integrate him back into the game?
The wait is not maybe as frustrating as people would anticipate. The integration has been a learning process. He comes back very rusty, and his fine motor skills have struggled the last couple of years, and really doesn't catch stride until we've been able to practice over Christmas break and get some two-a-days in, and get some shooting reps and do some different things with that. And you know, I think Lance has learned you know, how different the two sports are. And you know, the other thing that's happened the last 2 years, he's been banged up, and it's taken a while for him to either heal his ankle or heal his wrist or heal his knee, and that has also taken some time. So hopefully, you know, barring any injury, he can come back this winter, and we can shake the rust off as quickly as possible.
There's not a lot of athletes kind of in this day and age that can compete at a pretty high level, Division I or Division II, in two kind of prominent sports like he does, starting quarterback football, starting on the basketball team. What is it that separates him from just the other athletes that are out there?
Lance is very gifted as far as I think he's very determined. He's a gifted student. I think studying and his learning habits and his determination all come pretty easily to him. That's not to say that he doesn't work very hard at it and is not very organized, but he is very strong-willed and very gifted at putting things in order that are very important to him, and that allows him to be very successful in using his athletic ability, which is a little bit stronger than some of the others.
How is he off the field, off the court, to travel with? I mean, obviously he's a focused student, but what kind of person is Lance?
Lance is a very good teammate, very strong leader, probably more so by example, but as he's getting older into our system, and I'm certainly noticing in the football system, he's becoming more vocal. He certainly is a fun, charismatic guy that I think is well respected amongst his teammates for how physical he is, how hard he plays, how successful he's been both in the classroom and on the field or the court, and he's just one of those people that's a joy to be around and a joy to coach.
He told me before the football season started that Eric Medberry has been trying to work with him on sliding. He's now the starting quarterback. If he goes downfield, he's supposed to slide and not put his head down like he's been doing the last couple of years. Do you share those same sentiments?
I share those, and I wish Medberry the best of luck because Lance is one that has a lot of heart, a lot of determination, and when push comes to shove, I'm not sure sliding is something that is built into Lance's DNA, but hopefully Coach Medberry can do a good job with that.